It's nice to be able to go around and feel good about a project, feel good that it's being seen, feel good that it's like, it's saying nice things about family and working together and that it has a spirit to it that for me reminds me of a film of old or like a Goonies or watching it gives me, I've seen it now, I've never watched my films and I've seen this film maybe 5 or 6 times because it's so much fun to watch with it.
Avenger, the force of evil. I am Dungeon Master, your guide in the realm of Dungeons and Dragons.
Now, folks, got to give you a warning here. I'm going to drop a couple of spoilers about Dungeons and Dragons, which I unfortunately saw last night. And also, let us remind ourselves about what the writers behind the movie actually said about this. That they were going to intentionally emasculate the strong leading men. Is this true? Did this actually happen? Unfortunately, it did, in the worst possible way. So without further ado, folks, we'll roll the sexy opening titles and we're going to get into the travesty and the abomination, which is Dungeons and Dragons 2023.
You're going to have to snoop around to see what you can find. Time is of the essence here, with Cuba being so close to the US mainland. Use your spies to avoid detection and possibly bribe any enemies that stand in your way.
I gotta say, the disheveled appearance of Chris Pine does have me concerned. This guy is a good-looking dude. He's the son of Robert Pine. You know him as one of the, I think he was the chief in CHIPS, the California Highway Patrol from the 1970s, 80s. But I think the experience of working with Olivia Wilde on Don't Worry, Darling, where she was busy shagging Harry Styles behind the scenes, kind of left him with PTSD, I guess. And of course, if we go over to the glorious Rotten Tomatoes, but Dungeons & Dragons is currently 93% from the audience verified scores. Whether they are verified remains to be seen, but I disagree with these reactions. Also, a lot of people who have reviewed this film already, I've noticed a common trend where they say that D&D 23 is not trying to be Lord of the Rings. Now, I disagree about that comment because there are pivotal scenes in this film that reminded me of Fellowship of the Ring. For example, now a little bit of a spoiler, but you probably won't even care at this stage, but Bradley Cooper does make a cameo. In fact, a couple of members in my audience were asking, is that Bradley Cooper? Is it really? Well, first of all, the slightly big nose and the piercing blue eyes might be a dead giveaway. And also, why do single him out in this particular performance? He plays a hobbit. Of course, we don't use or hear the term hobbit within D&D 23, but you can just tell because the minute he opens the door to Michelle Rodriguez, she's like 10 times taller than him. They were once a couple. There are some punchlines I can think of regarding that relationship.
Me too, son. Me too.
So, first of all, he lives in a hobbit abode. The actual scenery is very similar to the hobbits in Fellowship of the Ring. So, again, lack of originality from the screenwriters. They're repurposing existing IPs. And basically, if you decide to watch this movie, it's going to be the catalyst for what the remake of Lord of the Rings will actually look like. I'm telling you now, if you don't believe me, if you think I'm a conspiracy theorist, that is entirely up to you. No problem whatsoever. Honor Among Thieves is very similar to Among Thieves, Uncharted 2. And of course, you've got Holgar the Barbarian, as played by Michelle Rodriguez. Basically, they've repurposed the name from Hagar the Horrible, which is a cartoon strip which used to appear daily in the Sun newspaper. So apart from page 3, I had that comic strip to look forward to each and every single day. And you know what? When you see Michelle Rodriguez, she's fine. We know she's a rough and tough girl, but nobody really cares about her physical prowess. But on the other hand, the main source of contention that I have for this film is they keep beating you over the head with the diversity hammer. Unfortunately, it happens. I wanted to ignore it so much, but it kept pushing things in my face. For example, Chris Pine has a diverse wife and daughter. Of course, you had to throw that in. And the wife, I will get back to at the end of this video because it's pretty funny what I have to say about her. Now, of course, the daughter, I find she's a better actress than Thandie Newton's god-awful daughter's performance in The Last of Us. I actually tapped out of that show after episode 3. Didn't want to watch anymore. Very glad I didn't because I heard the show got from bad to extremely worse. And you know, there's a moment where they walk into a tavern and you see a man of color beating on the drum. At this stage, it might as well just be the diversity drum.
Jesus Christ, Powell! Could be a fucking bartender for all we know.
The problem with this film, it takes Lars Ulrich's drumsticks from Metallica and beats you over the head again and again about identity politics, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure the actor who they called up for his 15 seconds of fame was absolutely thrilled. It's something to tell your grandkids about much later on in life. For me personally, if I want to be bludgeoned to death, it's going to be by the beautiful heaving bosoms of Miss Jill Valentine. Now, this film feels like an amalgamation of Wheel of Time, that god-awful TV show from Amazon.
You don't listen to the wind, Egwene. It's the wind that listens to you.
Speaking of which, I would also like to throw in Rings of Power as well.
Woo woo woo! No. Woo woo woo! Woo woo woo!
It feels incredible because what it feels like is a mountain of support. This has been a labour of love.
I got tears in my eyes already. Get to be tears in the eyes.
But also, this film doesn't actually feel like D&D to me. It feels more like the video game Fable. And that's what this film feels like to me. It's more Fable than Dungeons and Dragons and RPGs. Now, there are some Neanderthals who would love to comment on this and disagree with me, but of course, D&D is based on a tabletop game, a board game that's played on top of a table, mostly. And you know what? RPGs, they don't do it for me. I've seen Critical Role. You've got to make up dialogue for what your character's motivations are going to be before you make that next move across the board. To me, that's actually very boring. I don't really care about that. The only RPG games I'm actually interested in are Mass Effect because, honestly, you get such a deep dive in there. And I know there are other RPG games that I cannot think of at the moment.
Hey, man. You gonna do something crazy?
It's not role-playing, is it?
What the fuck is role-playing?
But you get my drift on that one. And I will say that the usage of Hugh Grant is quite limited. When we do see him, he's just obviously just very funny. It's the same Hugh Grant that I've known and liked for a very long time. I think he's just terrific in his film. He has a lot of fun. Of course, he plays the Forger, and of course, he is the baddie. So work out that dynamic as much as you want to. The action in this film is okay. It's not mind-blowing. I think the best person in this movie is Simon, as played by Justice Smith. I believe he's the same actor who cropped up in the Jurassic films. And I do believe he might actually be British and not American, or it could be the other way around. But either way, he puts in a pretty good, faultless UK accent, so I truly appreciated that. I will say about the special effects, about 90% of them are absolutely, truly awful. It's like some of the people who were bullied by Victoria Alonso over at Disney and Marvel fled to this production and, well, the talent speaks for itself, right? I'll say the only good special effects in this film is where Jean-Regis Fils-Aimé, as I like to call him, because while he's a good-looking actor, I think in about 20 years' time, he's going to let himself go like Reggie did at Nintendo. And I will say that the special effects that I enjoyed were when Reggie walked up to a big mullet, whatever it was. He looked like a mullet fish to me, and coaxed a cat out of it, which is a little bit strange of an image. And then he proceeds to give money to a homeless goat, god, whatever it is. Those are the only two special effects that I liked in the entire film. Apart from that, the dragons looked awful. I've seen better dragon effects in Reign of Fire, which, by the way, is going to be a future film review, so keep your eyes out for that video. And he has one key action scene, and I've got to mention, yeah, I've only seen like 2 or 3 moments of the leading men actually getting down and getting dirty in the fight scenes. But leave it all to the girls to do everything else. Now, I've got to say, the most heartfelt moment in this film is where Chris Pine's lute-playing character, Ed, tells the rest of the group that he's a champion at failing. And I've got to say, that gave me a bit of the feels. I had a bad day yesterday. So when I heard that dialogue, I thought, oh shit, this is actually like, this is a very prophetic moment. And throughout the film, Chris Pine is reminding his on-screen daughter that he and her and his deceased wife, I forgot to tell you that she died in the film and it's actually quite ironic how she dies as well, that they're all going to be reunited in the end. How so? Because Simon has this device. It can only be used once and once only to resurrect somebody who's dead. And that reminds me of an ongoing joke in the film where they have to resurrect corpses and they've got 5 questions to ask them, and the joke does get tiresome by the 3rd corpse they go to. Whatever, doesn't matter, I just kind of forgot about it and moved on. But now, towards the end of the film, and I'm dropping a little bit of a spoiler here for you folks, Michelle Rodriguez's Holgar gets shot by a red demon's arrow. Now, once you get one of these babies in you, I mean, it's instant death. It's like a slow ticking cyanide time bomb. So what does Chris Pine do? He takes out this device that could bring back his dead wife, and it could be one big happy family unit again. And as Michelle Rodriguez dies and then clocks out, everybody in the cinema is very silent. And I thought, oh wow, this is actually a pretty good dark moment. But what does Chris Pine do? He uses it on Holgar. So, screw the dead wife, she can stay dead. And by the way, the actress who played her was absolutely terrible, so I can kind of guess that's the reason why they didn't bother to bring her back. It is the weirdest decision I've ever seen in the film, and in a film narrative like this. So, Dungeons and Dragons 2023. Is it going to make mint at the box office? Probably. Will it be a $1 billion hitter? It won't be. It'll probably make around, I would say, $750 million at the box office. Well, of course, we've got another franchise coming out very shortly, which is the Mario Brothers, the Super Mario Brothers. And I'm looking forward to that. I think a lot of people are going to go and hate watch that film because of Chris Pratt, but I don't care. It looks good. The trailer had me laughing a lot when I saw it yesterday. And of course, D&D is produced by Hasbro. I ran a video this week about how woke that company actually is. In fact, somebody even commented on my video, there used to be a designer at Hasbro and how they had a really bad time working there. And dare I say it, I'll also be watching the Dungeons and Dragons film from 2000 starring Jeremy Irons and Marlon Wayans. What an unlikely combination of actors we have there. But judging by this still, I'm looking forward to watching this movie, if you get my drift. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Now, one thing I forgot to mention about Chris Pine's on-screen wife is that she died the same way as Michelle Rodriguez did, which is the red demon arrow to the heart. All the veins start spreading forth. But of course, you don't want to hear those gory details anymore because you are sick and tired of hearing my frustrations about Hollywood as it goes. Even more miraculous about this film, it was devised by the 2 gentlemen behind Game Night, starring Jason Bateman, Rachel McAdams, and of course, Dexter himself, Michael C. Hall. That's a much better film to watch than this, but of course, we're talking 2 different pigeons in 2 different trees. And on that one, if I were you, and if you were me, you better come back for the next video and a nice slice of nostalgia.